Thank you again for being with us, and feel free to use the time however you want.
Okay. Okay, good afternoon to everyone. It was a pleasure to be with you. We are going to make a trip around biofuels, bioenergy with a special focus on biogas. I called this Transforming Biomass into Energy and Co-Products. I'm convinced that energy is not the only way to go. It has to be together with other products coming from biomass, and I will try to introduce to these thoughts. Okay. So I would begin with this slide, thinking about what we are heading, where are we heading as in the world in the use of energy, and energy in a wide way of dealing with it. Not only energy in the fuel you put in a car or in a tractor, but food is also energy. And also seeing through the COP of Paris 2016 agreements and all the target we need to meet. So first of all, when we are talking about bioenergy, we are talking about different energy vectors of transforming this biomass, and we exclude from this definition all the material included in fossil forms, in the geologic platforms, and that's what we are going to talk about in this lecture. So we rely on photosynthesis. That's the base of all biomass generation. It's important to keep in mind this. That's a way of transforming the solar energy into complex molecules, carbon molecules, and we then use different ways of dealing with this and making this into energy and other products, bioethanol, biodiesel, biogas, and so on. So looking about the efficiency at the chloroplast, at the cell point, we can reach an efficiency of 27%, and biochemistry is a way to go forward with increasing that efficiency. Then we rely on individuals where we have photosynthesis syndrome, we have breathing, we have partition between the different parts of the plant. Then we lower the efficiency to 9 to 12%, and then those plants are sharing the environment, and so we end finally with an overall efficiency of 2 to 4%, and then we have to put management into there to increase that efficiency, because we are dealing with resource availability, resource capture, and the inter-specific competition between the different plants. So then, when we talk about bioenergy, first we have to always keep in mind we are dealing with a very low energy density. There's an example there of 3,500 kilocalories per kilo. That's a broad average. Compare with fossil fuels. That's why fossil fuels were so successful in the past 100 years, because their energy density is much higher. And the low efficiency in capturing the solar energy gives another characteristic of biomass that is widely spread. So the low energy density and the high geographical dispersion system, that means that everything we have to deal with bioenergy has to be site specific. We cannot make very general thoughts about the use and conversion of biomass, we have to be very specific in our studies to deal with it. So, regarding world biomass production, we can make some questions. No, do we have a problem of biomass production? Is it necessary to continue intensifying and expanding this production? Is there enough biomass for the global needs in energy, in feed, food, and other uses? How we use that biomass? How much we waste? Those are the questions we have to think about when we are dealing with biomass. So, first of all, the great paradigm about food competition and about the food security issue. This is not very seen in presentation, but 1/3 of the world food is thrown away, without being used. We are talking about 1,300 million tons per year of food that we really throw away. And which are the environmental consequences of this? Looking at the carbon footprints, for example, of the food waste, is 3,300 million tons of CO2 equivalent greenhouse gases released into the atmosphere per year, just to throw it away. Or if we look at the amount of water being used, we have 250 cubic kilometers of water. Or looking at the surface we are using for production, 1,400 million hectares, that represents 28% of the world agricultural land, is plown, is used just only to throw it away. So we have to think about this also. I wanted to show you some graphs of Allen and Lin study. They shared this study with me when I was in Brazil in a project on food security and bioenergy. And we can see here through the graphs which are the variables food security is related with, and we can, with the square R, we can see there the relationship between, for example, GDP and food security, 0.9 correlation. Or if you look at it on the energy side, the energy consumption and the food security is 0.7. It's logical that's it's lower because on the last 10 years, we are trying to separate GDP growth from intensive energy use, but it still represents very highly the money people have and the food security. But what's happening with the normal things we see in lectures regarding what do we have to do to increase food security? For example, increase arable land. The correlation is 0.01, or we can increase yields of crops. The correlation is 0.001, or we can use more permanent crops, or we can use more fertilizers, 0.006. So just very briefly, what I wanted to share with you is that food security is not related to the amount of biomass we can generate. It's a completely different issue. Is regarding education, is regarding income, it's regarding jobs of people, corruption in different countries, and so on. That's nothing to do with the food, with the biomass availability in the world. And the other important issue regarding biomass use is obesity and overweight. That's another phenomenon in the modern world. 3 million people die from obesity every year, or 63 million children under the age of 5 are overweight. Those are numbers from the World Health Organization. The number of overweight people in the world is 1,900 million, no, and 650 obese. That's an enormous amount of resources also that are being used for there as a market to buy and buy and buy more biomass, more food, instead of having a good diet for ourselves. Only taking the US lost in food 4 million tons per year could feed 1 billion people who go to bed hungry every year. Just an example. So let's go now into sustainable development. I always want to compare the city needs with the farm needs and how we can solve both of them using knowledge, using science, and using technology. On the city problems, we have a sustained and accelerated growth. Brazil and Argentina are good examples of the enormous growth of huge and big cities, and great part of the populations are now living in cities. That generates problems with solid and liquid waste, how to treatment, where to do it, where to deposit them, and what cost are we doing that. Increasing pollution of air, of soil, and of water, of groundwater, of rivers and lagoons. I always remember the Tietê in Sao Paulo as an example, or the River Plate here in Buenos Aires. Growing health problems and quality of life, deficit and rising energy costs, and high levels of emissions into the atmosphere. There is a great movement of big cities all around the world, because big cities are an important actors in greenhouse gas emissions at a world level. Now moving into the farm problems. Going into the farm, we have energy deficit and growing imports. We have nutritional deficit in soils. We have increased or higher variability in water cycles. We are now in a huge phenomenon of weed resistance, adjusted margins of farmers. We have a reduction in organic matter, and that leads into physical deterioration of soils, increasing cost of fertilizers, pollution by effluents in groundwaters, in rivers and lagoons, and high levels of emissions also to the atmosphere, agriculture being also an important actor in the overall greenhouse gas emissions at a world level. So looking this through the lens of the global approach and sustainable developments, we are very now accustomed to look at it at the three levels: at the environmental level, at the social level, and the economic level. But this has been enlarged recently, and you see there in the circle in the right, we are including dignity, we are including prosperity, we are including justice, a very important partnership to catalyze global solidarity for sustainable development. And we are involving very closely people and how they live, and how they learn, and education, and so on. And this is so now there is a change in the paradigm of the agriculture sector. Primary agriculture production ceased to be the central farm factor, and now we are looking at productivity and sustainability and quality at the same time. So we need a better understanding of the interrelations between these sectors and the activities involved in this new challenge. So this leads into the sustainable goals of the United Nations. There are 17 goals. So every technology we promote, we use, we develop has to be analyzed through these goals, and also not only on the goals, but on the targets derived from these goals, and on the indicators that were developed to measure our progress and our contribution to these goals. So we have to learn more on this and try to relate each technology we develop and we use into these goals. Looking briefly at the climate change phenomenon, this is the Economist of this year, stating that we are in the line of fire, and if we are losing the world against climate change, and the last IPCC report is alerting on this, on the temperature increase and the evolution we are making. So we need more and more involvement in this issue. When we look at the biomass transformation, to achieve sustainability of this transformation of biomass, it's fundamental to increase the number and value of products we obtain from this transformation of biomass. I summarize this into this pyramid. You see there that in the bottom of the pyramid, we have biofuels, bioenergy, and there you have bioethanol, biodiesel, biogas, pellets, and so on, and solid biomass, and so on. As you see, the base of the pyramid is very large, so we can derive great masses of biomass that are not being used for other uses into the biofuels. But looking at the market value, this is the lowest market value that we can obtain from a biomass. We are talking there about $300 to $600 per ton of biomass. But including technology, including knowledge, including development, we can go further and further up into this pyramid. So we end up with the bioproducts, bioplastic, biomolecules, biopharmaceuticals, etc., or very specific food, for example, products. We can talk up there about $40 to $50 to $60,000 a ton. So in the last 10-15 years, what we have seen in the transformation of biomass is a mixture of products, since as you see in the pyramid, the top of the pyramid is very narrow. This indicates that those markets are very small in comparison with the biofuels and bioenergy markets. So we have to be very keen to keep on in this market. So to achieve this, it's not very easy to achieve this transformation of biomass. We need an intense and continuous work in the scientific field. We need to keep on international negotiations. No, we have been sharing with my Brazilian college for 10 years now our struggles and our battles with Europe and with the US, finding out ways to introduce new products into those markets. So international negotiations are very, very important. Also, we have to make very deep market studies. No? Also, diplomatic relations agreements are very, very important to reach this objective we have. On the other hand, we have the inverted pyramid, no? Where we have the waste treatments that constitutes a tool to reduce the environmental impact and increase the sustainability of our activities or our biomass activities. So first of all, we have to prevent use. We have to reduce the intensive use of biomass. Then we have to reuse it. We have to recover, and we have to minimize the final disposal of this biomass. And here, as you remember, we are starting to give some answers to the problems we emphasize in cities and in farms. No, looking at this kind of target we have. So this is cross-cutted by conversion technologies. No, I had the opportunity to work and share with colleagues from very important agriculture and technology countries as the US, as UK, as France, Italy, and so on. And you cannot imagine the amount of money they are investing in conversion technology, because this is a key factor to reach all this. We are talking about the previous pyramid and this pyramid, and also achieve circular economy. If we don't put a lot of brain, a lot of science into this, and I'm talking about investment of $400, $500, $800 million per year only in conversion technologies of biomass. So when we are dealing with this biomass issue, I set up this circular way of presenting the complex and multiple interaction unknown in markets history, where we have food patterns, we have markets, we have international and national regulations. All biomass is very heavily regulated in the internal markets and the international markets. Then we have all the interaction with climate, with crops, with soil types, and so on. So all these bricks interact with each other, and we need also to invest a lot of time to try to modelize how this system works and how we can succeed in transforming biomass. Regarding the production of biomass, it's important to imagine what kind of agriculture will allow us to face the challenges posed by environmental requirements, economic requirements, and social sustainability. And here, the evolution of agriculture technologies, now in the world we have all kinds of agriculture. We have the traditional agriculture, we call it 1.0, is self-sufficient, manual, mechanical methods, and pest control. Then we go on to the 2.0, mechanized agriculture, where we have a great investment in agrochemicals, in fertilizers, in farm machinery. Then we go on the site-specific agriculture, or 3.0, where we have site-specific resource management, answering to soil variability and crop variability. And now we are starting with smart agriculture, called 4.0, where we have broad definition of economic, environmental, quality, and life sustainability. All those are sharing now, but there is a very, very rapid movement into 4.0, and I'm going to show you just a brief examples of what is going on the agriculture side. First of all, we are seeing an eruption of the intelligent agriculture. We are capable each month, each day, where we are multiplying our capacity of production, of measuring, of storing, and processing information in the cloud instead of in a computer or in a cell phone, robotization, artificial intelligence, renewable energies, minimizing the environmental impact of production. Just as an example, I read news and papers that stated out that Holland is multiplying by 6 the mean horticulture production of Spain in confined sites, using no fossil energy and using no agrochemicals at all. So that's how agriculture is moving along now, and these are the disruptive technologies coming in the pipeline we have to deal with. To study biofuels, biogas, and so on, we need to take a look at the different components of the bioenergy chain. We said something about feedstock production, something about conversion processes, then the energy carriers, solid carriers, liquid carriers, gas carriers, the equipments to use those biofuels, and the final products or the final markets we are reaching. Either the electric market, the mechanic market, or heat, or electricity, and so on. So another phenomenon that we are seeing regarding biomass transformation, and I rely here on John Sanders, that's a professor and an academic from Holland that has also a private enterprise in the conversion of biomass. He says, I stress here the 5 points he's stressing out. You can look at the YouTube and find all his lectures there. It's very important, and he's very clear. First of all, he says that there is a significant reduction of energy consumption per unit of products when we low down the scale. There is a reduction of waste treatment and waste treatment energy use. We have lower values of raw materials use. We have lower levels of capital investment per unit of product. And we have a multiplicity of product in different markets. So, looking, for example, at Brazil, at just a giant country in the world, and the distance biomass has to travel from one point to the other, and the advantages of converting that biomass near the place where that biomass is being produced, just to minimize the transport cost. And there is a strong movement. We have, for example, in Argentina, a local company that's making small-scale bioethanol plants, placing those bioethanol plants at farm level and using the DDGS, the protein content of this transformation of corn in meat production within the same place, minimizing the transport of biomass, just to give you an example of this. So we have seen a lot of papers in the last 10 years talking about this possible competition between bioenergy and food production or feed production, and what came out on the last 10 years is totally the contrary. Bioenergy has come inside this great puzzle of food, feed, chemicals, and materials, and instead of competing with food, feed, chemicals, and material, it has enlarged the production of both forms. So nowadays, bioenergy is seen as an initiator and facilitator of the transition into a circular economy, and linked to this new concept of bioeconomy. So how we are entering this new world 4.0 of sustainability. And here I want to also make a little stop on public perception and awareness and installation of paradigm and how this is done and the consequences of this phenomenon that we are dealing with in modern societies. As you all know, now we have just very, very important tools in our hands. A simple intelligent smartphone can give access to the whole world. We just taking a small film and putting some slides or some pictures and some comments, you can reach the whole world. So it's very easy to install through social media and the conventional media with, I put there inverted commas, scientific support, some perception of some products. No, we're talking about bioethanol, we're talking about biogas. It's very easy to put out there fake news, and this changes public perception. No? And politicians are always looking on the public perception of societies. Just they have to move from, and it's incredible when you see all speeches of politicians 5 or 10 years ago talking about certain issue, and that issue has changed. They completely change their way to move. So they ask regulators, they ask the parliaments to develop laws and regulations in order to answer this new perception of certain biomass products. So they ask for new requirements. And these control departments, they rely on the scientific production we make in universities and research institutes. And as I show there, we are dealing with this phenomenon of the turtle and the rabbit. No, especially when we are dealing with environmental phenomenon of ecosystem phenomenon that have slow answers. We need time. We need time to make field tests. We need time to analyze. And in the other way, laws and requirements, they go up very, 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 very fast. So nowadays we have this phenomenon that regulations are being imposed with a great damage with new industries, and we have to speed up with our answers in order to make an equilibrium on this phenomenon. So just to going through this paradigm and looking at the social license of the different technologies we are dealing with, and especially on European countries and in some parts of the US, we have these paradigms already in place. No, first of all, the relationship between food security and production capacity. We have seen all this in the first slides I'll show you. Then the second one derived from the first one, competition for food, the advantages, inverted commas, of non-food crops or second generation. No, we've seen in the last 2 years the complete failure of this second generation transformation of biomass. Even in Brazil, you have a second generation plant that is not running. Cost of higher than conventional fuels, relationships between crops and biofuels directly without looking at that pyramid I show you, the different products we are producing at the same time from the biomass we are transforming, the increase in production to the detriment of forest areas, and Brazilians have to deal a lot of this, and we also, we are being blamed for producing and getting rid of all our forests and the Amazons and so on. The relative advantages of greenhouse gas reduction and the low positive energy balances. Those are all the subjects we need to study at a local level. We need to be very, very prepared in order to answer this paradigm and make our points based on science based on experience to turn down these paradigms is always very, very difficult. So all this ends up in circular economy. Circular economy is not an easy target to achieve. We are seeing new institutes, new research and development institutes popping up all over the world, where several universities gather together, several institutes with different specialties gather together in order to solve all the problems that arise when we try to get this thing working. I repeat, it's not easy. We have to select the different industries to make them work together, one using the residues from the other, and reusing biomass, reusing energy, sharing different vectors of energy between them, and so on. This is an example of end products, no, and how we are moving on the information side. No? Biomass is carrying along more and more information, no, and customers. We are looking here at an Italian customer taking a picture at the information certain food has regarding the nutritional value of that product, but also at the environmental impact represented here by the carbon footprint of that product. So, just a brief introduction into the footprints. No, here my group has been working for more than 10 years in life cycle assessment studies. We started to study and to be involved with this, with the problems we had with the export of biofuels into other markets, especially European and US markets. And so we began studying all the value chain, looking at the life cycle analysis of the carbon, water footprints, and we are still in progress on introducing new demands as eco-designs, as eco-labeling, as social life cycle assessment, and others. So the most popular footprint family, one is the ecological footprint, how much of the regenerative capacity of our biosphere are we directly or indirectly using compared with the amount that is available by means of the biocapacity of the biosphere. Then the carbon footprint, that's the most known footprint, looking at the total amount of greenhouse gas emissions which are generated directly or indirectly by humans' activity or accumulated through the life cycle of the products we are using. And looking at the water footprint, no human appropriation of natural capital in terms of volume of fresh water need in all the products we are using. So if we analyze biofuels at a large scale production, we can easily see that all the things we have been talking about are present in the value chain of the large scale biofuel present in the world: biogas, bioethanol, and biodiesel and pellets. No, they derive from well-established transformation chain. No, as an example, the value chain of soybeans or of sugarcane in Brazil and Argentina was already there before biofuels started. They are produced from co-products or flex crop production, flex crops that can go either more into food, more into feed, more into energy, and they have flexibility to price movements, to replacement, to feed pattern changes. They are much affected by policy and administrative changes, either inside or outside country boundaries. No, we have a long history in Argentina where markets open, then close, open, close. They keep on bumping up new regulations, new requirements, new barriers to protect their industry. No? So these industries have great plasticity to move from one side into the other. So looking at the analysis of the productive environment, I here state out what are the most important things we have to look at the biomass production. No, solar radiation, temperature, water, irrigation, micro and micronutrients, fertilizers, and so on. Then the type of plant. No, remember one of the second or third slide I show you where we were comparing different efficiency of conversion between solar and the conversion into biomass. Here we have a very strong example looking at C3 or C4 plants, and you can clearly see there the productivity measured in gigajoules per hectare or per day, runs from around 6 to around 9. No, and the assimilation of milligrams of carbon dioxide by the square decimeter an hour ranges 20 to 30 to 50 to 70. No, so those are great differences. And you as Brazilians are experts in this. Which is your biggest crop? Is sugarcane. Is a C4. Is a king of plants and plant conversion of solar energy into biomass, into organic molecules. The resource competitions, no, we've seen some of these regarding land occupation, deforestation, water use, removal of nutrients, use of fertilizers, and use of fossil energy, and also all the talk we had minutes ago about logistics, about transport of biomass. Looking at no-till, both countries all over Mercosur, taking Paraguay also and Uruguay, together with Brazil and Argentina, we have a very large use of no-tillage in our crops. So when we start to think of using crop residues, have to invest a lot in what consequences gives the use of this biomass into different uses. No? How much we can remove without depleting the carbon storage, for example. So then some issues we should stress out, looking at the new challenges of agricultural residue use. We have to understand and look deeply into carbon balance, into wind and water erosion control, into the water cycle effects, into the nutrient cycle and reposition, looking at the edapoclimatic factor interactions and using models into agroecological regions and ecological sites, and all these 4.0 agriculture all these enormous tools we have now to manage all this information is going to improve our understanding in order to get more precise into the use of residues. Just an example I'm bringing you of the biggest Congress, fertilization Congress in Argentina just 1 month ago, and the maps of removal and the concentration of organic matter and nutrients, and how we have to take a look at this. In the world, there is a lot of science put into this. These are some examples of models, and models regarding erosion, models regarding carbon and nutrient balance, how we can put all those models to work together in order to reach the availability of biomass we can use in each part of the land. So, how countries are preparing to face these new challenges derived from the multiple use of biomass in a sustainable way. And here I'm bringing how the U.S. Department of Energy Program is a program that invests more than $400 to $500 million per year in research. When I talk about research, is research not considering the salaries of the researchers or the buildings or all the external factor, is net investment in research. They divide the research into improvement of biomass, into the technologies of deconstruction of biomass, into the technologies of conversion of biomass, and the cross-cutting achievements or issues. There you have economic, there you have the environmental studies, and how all this works together. So, surprisingly, for our way of thinking, the U.S. Department of Energy office has a genomic science program. So they are looking at the genomes and how is the biological dynamic structure, and how this is affecting what I show you regarding the efficiency of photosynthesis, and how these molecules of carbons are being produced at a cell level. Then they go on to understand how proteins function individually. Then they go on how the tissues function, and then they go on into communities and gain understanding and how these communities of plants work together, and then they finally end up in ecosystems. So here we are looking at the whole picture. Now we have the production goals, we have the system answers or response, looking at the biochemical, biodiversity, and economic. We have the integrated assessment, where we have huge departments of modeling, looking at the biophysical and the economical, the life cycle assessments, in order to reach the farm level, the regional level, the national level, and finally bringing the outcome of the optimal configuration service in order to produce and transform this biomass in the most wise manner, in order to keep low the environmental effect. So now we are going to start the biogas side of my presentation. I want to make a little stop here in order to give time for you to make some question on this first holistic presentation regarding the biomass transformation and all the issues being involved in this, and then we enter the second phase of the presentation.
If anyone has questions, remember you are the microphone is muted, so you have to unmute your own microphone. Is everyone shy? I actually had a question about.
I have one.
Okay, go ahead.
Hernan, go on.
It's about. Oh, okay. It's about my contest in Colombia, because Colombia has several types of regions. In some of them are many mountains, but I have flat lands too. But in this context, for the mountain regions, how do we get agriculture 2.0? It's, I don't know how we can get that.
Yes, there are enormous developments, especially for small scale production in very in places where there are difficulties in reaching those places. On satellite images, we are even Argentina is placing in the last 5 years. I think 5 or 6 new satellites that are covering the whole South America and bringing a lot of new information into that. And now we have the capability of dealing with those huge amounts of information in order to convert that information into usable usable things to make progress. No. In such areas, we have to in such areas we have to keep in mind we have to reach the top end of the pyramid. We have to develop high value products instead of putting poor people to produce very low value products. There are 2 advantages in this. If transport costs, especially in those areas, is very expensive, since the maintenance of roads are very expensive and so on. A lot of time is also involved, a lot of energy is involved to reach those places. So you need to transport very high value products instead of very low products. No, that is a change in mind. I'm always very annoyed when people try to get poor people to produce very low value products instead of introducing them into high value products. Another very important aspect we have now is it's very easy now, relatively very easy, to reach world markets, no? Through all the media we have. So we need a lot of investment in communication to make this available to all people, and these people with only a cell phone sell their products into any part of the world using those huge platforms as Alibaba or Amazon or Mercado Libre as the Argentine, and the movement is so strong. For example, in Argentina, Mercado Libre as a company that only sells things, its value is 4 times the largest company in Argentina. That's it's a change in only 4 years. So all these we have to we are dealing with a world that has nothing to do with the world we know, but for that we also need open frontiers and being open markets in order to give our citizens the capability of reaching those markets. You had another question, no, before Hernan made that one?
Yes, I was just going to ask if you can give us more detail about that one slide where you were talking that Holland is producing 6 times the. I didn't understand if it was general biomass in Spain or some specific product. So I was just curious whether that was. I mean, considering the size of Holland, if that kind of, what kind of effort did they take? So was it government-led? Was it led by several small parties, or was it a single concentrated effort? So if you can give us more detail and also discuss how to take that to a larger scale.
Yes, I was very surprised when so I did some research. There are small and medium farms. They are using intelligent greenhouses where they make horticulture production. These greenhouses with very specialized ways of dealing with not getting into these controlled environments, weeds and insects. They can produce without using chemicals. They use organic fertilizers, and looking at the energy side, they are using solar and geothermal energy to make all this work together, and so they have no fossil fuels being used for the production. No? So that's a way. I'm going to look at the specific literature, and I will send it to you just to do more research. This is comparing the horticulture production in Spain with the horticulture production in Holland. As you know, Holland is the greatest biomass production country in the world, in the markets of the world. Is a shame for us, being having such a huge countries as Brazil and Argentina, that as a very small country that as Holland is managing one of the greatest biomass transactions all over the world. But that's the reality.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we go on then.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to close the window. So I'm going to introduce here you to a new concept of biogas production. We started with the University of Michigan and the Biogas Council of Italy on this concept 5 or 6 years ago. And we call it Biogas Done Right, BDR, as a new proposal towards sustainable development of biogas. This slide summarizes what we are talking about when what we mean about biogas done right. First of all, we are increasing the amount of days we are doing photosynthesis in our fields. As you all know, if we go outside into a soybean field in Brazil or in Argentina, we see a lot of days or even months where the field is without no crop at all on the surface. We are using agrochemicals to keep out weeds with an enormous problem of resistance in weeds. So making an intelligent coverage of the whole years with different groups, we can improve water quality, we can reduce soil erosion, we can increase soil productivity, and we can lower down greenhouse gas reduction. Derived from this continuous soil coverage is the organic matter increase. Using organic fertilization in a wise way, in an intelligent way, in a site-specific way, we lower down the nutrition loss. And remember the problems I pointed out in the farming sector and how we are addressing those points. No? Better water use, yield and soil fertility increase, and carbon footprint improvement. Using those residues through valorization, no, through going up the pyramid, and not only using and spreading the residue as a low value product, we meet energy and co-products. We have emission credits. We have external reduction dependence. We minimize the ILUC, no? The indirect land use change risk, because we are increasing the amount of biomass we are producing in our on our soils. And looking about economic stability, all these phenomena increases the money flow of the farms, decreases the volatility of food, feed, and energy markets, and decreases our dependence on the on chemical fertilizers. Now, on this next slides, I'm going to try to show you how all this summary is. I can show you in real figures, in real farms, how this is working along. All this is in the concept of biogas as a biorefinery, no? In a scheme of biorefinery, looking at the reuse of digestate into different products, of the reuse of the energy vectors we are producing, and keeping organic matter within the farm. So this is the summary of the summary slide of the biogas done right, developed by Michigan State University, on the looking at biomethane into the grid, animal products, feed and food, double crops, triple crops, electricity, digestate, and so on. That was how biogas done right farm looks like in the whole year, with the continuous crop coverage along the year. As you see here in the upper side of the slide, we are looking at different years, different months, and how this is an example from Italy, where we have wheat grain, then bare ground, then tomato, and then wheat grain again. And the gray points represent chemical fertilizer introduction into the field. And in the biogas done right farm, we have wheat grain, maize or corn for silage, triticale, tomato, wheat grain. So we have a whole year production of different products, and the blue dots represent the input of digestate, of organic matter into the field. Summer and corn and winter triticale. We made a study for Argentina. If we use residues and coverage crops, we could stop importing gas from abroad, and this represented 2 years ago $300 and $600 million per year in dollars being spent abroad by Argentina. So here I am I'm presenting you an ECOFIS study done on different Italian farms, where all these statements they tried to analyze them and bring them into numbers. First of all, what they study in the different years in blue there, in dash, blue dash, you see there the total forage unit. You measure the biomass used, measured in total forage units, how there is an increase in the biomass production in the different farms. So the positive impacts in the soil quality, they measure increments in soil organic carbons, diminishing the risk erosion. They measure increment in biological activity, reduction in soil compaction, and additional soil nutrition. This is a graph of how in the central area of Argentina we have an increase in rain along the last 20, 30 years, and how cover crops could solve the problem of water table being closer and closer to the surface, and how we can use this water availability in a sustainable way, putting more crops in different parts of the year. This slide represents all the technology being involved in the nutrient application. No? It's not a matter of just spreading effluents all over the field with an increase in carbon, in nitrogen oxides being just lost into the atmosphere, with an increase in greenhouse gas emissions, and an important loss of nitrogen that has not been captured by the soil. So there is another, as you see there, in different farm machinery, there is a site-specific use of nutrients. Now this is shown here. Sorry, I lost the translation of this slide, but what I mean here is that this technology could be used as a back technology. These are technologies that are used as a carbon storage technologies. No? We know now that reducing the carbon emissions, we are not going to reach the Paris Agreement targets, and we need new technologies that are able to capture carbon dioxide into from the atmosphere into the soil. So this nutrient management of biogas production could be used as a BECS technology for achieving these objectives. This is a slide where tries to represent the increment in income per hectare that farmers can achieve through the implementation of more crops per year, and also the decrease of nearly 42% in the biogas feedstock used by biogas plants in using the winter crops and the extra summer crops. So Another important issue is the electricity emissions using biogas done right. Here we are comparing, the study is comparing traditional use in the upper left side, where you see this circle is all covered in green. That means we are using 285 hectares of corn to feed this 1 megawatt biogas plant. When we move into the right side, we are starting to use cover crops, and when we go down, we start to use not only cover crops, but other sorts of residues into the plant. Now, so this is a phenomenon that we are seeing here in Argentina, the new 1 megawatt plants that are being installed in different farms. When the farmer installs these huge plants, many neighbors knocks at the door and offers different types of residues that they have there, and they need to get rid of them. For example, they have a grain storage facility, and they had a problem with humidity of grain, and they have to empty this grain, this empty silo, and so for a biogas plant, that's a blessing from God, no? Because this residue have a very, very, very high biogas potential, production potential. So this is not a very infrequent phenomenon occurring in biogas plant. So through the conversion of this plant relying only in energy crop into a more variable plant using residues and crop cover crops, you have a reduction in residues and effluent storage, you have a reduction in fossil fertilizer demand, and we have an increase in soil carbon sequestration. And look what happens with the carbon footprint measured in grams of CO2 equivalent per megajoule. In the corn plant, the first plant I show you, you have a production of 34 grams of CO2 equivalent per megajoule. Using crops, you lower down, and using lower residues, you can even achieve negative balance, carbon balance. Here we can look at it in a very clear way. The first column is a fossil fuel. We are comparing biogas. Conventional biogas relying on the energy crop, looking at corn, for example, C4 crops, very popular in Germany. You see there, you have a decrease from 115 to 34. So you have an enormous advantages from using this biogas instead of a fossil fuel. But look at what happens on biogas done right, no? Using the crop with some corn, you can reach 10, but using residues, you can even reach -36 or -4 grams of CO2 equivalent per megajoule, and that's an enormous, enormous advantage. Biomethane, this is a new opportunity. This is the France France study where they are looking at first the increase in natural gas, and they are looking at renewable natural gas from 2012 to 2050. Which are the basics on this? The basics is that biomethane has an enormous advantages against other biofuels. No, we are looking here at the amount of kilometers that a car can run on biomethane per area. Compare it with biodiesel or bioethanol. Another advantage is the infrastructure we have. What I am showing you here is the variation of demand of a typical methane grid in a country, and the variation in red of the electric energy demand. As you can clearly see there, the variation in the gas demand is much bigger than electricity. So looking at this, what this is telling us is that the biomethane grid in most of the countries is a capacity is already there. You don't need to invest more there. It has a huge capacity of storing energy. So you can store biomethane using this facility, and only using biomethane to convert it into electric and putting this into the electric grid in the time where electricity is in the highest peak of demand, where they can reach $300, $400 a megawatt, where the countries have to import that energy or start to run very low efficient machines to produce and to cover that peak of energy. These are the installations for purification of biogas. We are looking at a Brazilian storage facility in Itaipu. Itaipu has a very nice and important biogas program. I encourage you to enter their website and all the materials they have, and they have a very large demonstration facility. And we made the Latin American Congress of Biogas in Itaipu last year, and I have several in YouTube, several videos on different plants we visit there. These are the different purification technologies already commercial, and regarding the capacity, how the specific investments costs go down for this. Another important target is the transport use of biogas. We are looking here at the pre-commercial of the New Holland plant tractor, and how they are dealing with the field capacity of this machine, and the comparison between methane and diesel. Okay, now we are entering here some study cases I want to show you on real field examples. This is the digesters in Europe. They are producing nearly 63 terawatts hour of electricity per year. That's enough for feeding nearly 15 million families. So as you see here, biogas is a huge technology out there in the European Union. The first farm we're going to visit in this virtual tour we're going to make is a feedlot that has a capacity ranging between 2,500 to 8,000 cattle, 2 cycles per year. They have 1 megawatt of photovoltaic plant. They have 2 plants of 1 megawatt, and they produce meat, digestate, and electricity. This is the Google map of plant 1 and plant 2. These are the recovery of the residue from different stables. One of the things I want to stress out on this example is the logistic internal roads and equipments. While we were having the presentation there last year, I had my watch, and I calculated the circulation of these tractors with biomass. Every 20 minutes, a tractor with that carry-on went by these roads. Another important factor is that the plan was prepared to deal with different types of materials. So you have bigger feeding facilities. You have intelligent effluent field application. We are looking here how you have the transport by pipes into the different fields, and to minimize the weight of the tractor and minimize soil compaction. Then the effluent is introduced into the soil in order to minimize the loss of nitrogen oxide into the atmosphere. No, so there is a clear example of technology being used. No, then you have a professional feeding strategy. No, when we start to deal with different biomass coming from different farms, having different sites, you need a very wise engineer to manage the plant, to make the appropriate tests, and to have a close look at the principal variables that need to be monitored in order to sustain a continuous production of the plant. Now we are going to visit a second plant in the north part of Italy. That's a 250 dairy cow farm that started in 2008, 10 years ago, with the first biogas plant, 1 megawatt plant. Then they placed a second biogas plant in 2012 with a new technology. You see there the 1 megawatt plant. The second one is much more smaller than the first one. It has a separation between the acidic and the methanogenic phase production. What products have been developed along 10 years in this farm? They are producing now pasteurized animal bedding. They are producing digestate to be used in the farm. They are producing concentrated liquid leaf fertilizer. They are giving service of control, drying of bales, round bales. They are giving that service and drying in a thermostatic way and in a very efficient way forages, and they are producing 2 megawatts of electricity. All this cash flow of electricity has been invested along all these 10 years, and the net final phenomenon, economic phenomenon, is that this farm had a cash flow of 600,000 euros per year, and now has a cash flow of 12 million euros per year. Imagine the amount of income for the farmers, new jobs being created, direct and indirect jobs in the area, and so on. So now we are going to make the tour. We are going to see how these bullet points appear in reality. First of all, the different feedstock sources for digester feeding. Now we are looking at on silage. We are looking on different materials being stored and being used in the farm. Here we are looking at the different machinery being used for feeding the material. Then here we're looking at the generator. In the middle part of the upper part of the slide, you see here all the thermal energy recover facility where thermal energy is recovered. Then on the left, on the right side, you see this machinery that was developed locally, where you can imagine there the bale put into there, so the current of hot air goes through the round bale, so you can achieve a control drying of those bale at a very high quality forage that can be used for animals. And in the down the left side of the slide, you can see there the concentrate liquid fertilizer facility. You have a separation between the cellulose and the liquid phase, and you have a post-treatment of the liquid phase in order to achieve liquid fertilizer to be commercialized. And the investment cost of this concentrated liquid fertilizer is equivalent to a new large harvesting machine. So on the right, you see the pasteurized cellulosic bed material. This is used for bedding of animals. It's pasteurized by means of the hot temperature, and the consequence of having a pasteurized cellulosic bedding is reducing by nearly 60 to 70% the amount of antibiotics being used for confined animals. Imagine the environmental and the economic consequence of using that bedding and the price you can sell that bedding in the market. Then you are looking there in the bottom left, the bales, how they are commercialized between the farms. On the upper left side, how liquid fertilizers are used, and in the right, a variable rate fertilization machinery that is in the 4.0 agriculture. It uses nutrient balance receipts in order to apply these nutrients and these organic fertilizers. Then the final digested field application, that is crucial to minimize ammonia loss and emissions into the atmosphere. Another machinery for intercropping application of liquid fertilizers. You see there the corn that is already raising up, and how this machinery is capable of applying organic fertilizer into the field. So now I'm going to introduce yourself into some studies we have been doing in local biogas plants in Argentina, looking at the energy return and at the carbon footprint of this plant. This plant used corn silage, and you see there the energy used in the corn silage. And with the result of this study we made, this plant is now has phased out the corn silage and now is using vinasse and other residues to produce biogas instead of relying on corn silage. The emission reduction compared to the Argentine national electric grid, I wanted to compare there. If you can achieve the total term energy produced by biogas being produced by the plant, you can achieve a theoretical emission reduction of 83%. No? If only you are delivering the electric energy and you are spoiling all the thermal energy, this emission reduction is only 46%. In this plant, they were achieving to use the thermal and the electric energy, and they have improved this in the last 2 years, and they could achieve a 69% of emission reduction. So here you can tell the manager of the plant with real numbers which are the consequences of using all the energy they are producing. So this is the same, but instead of looking at the numbers in percentage of reduction, we are looking here at the amount of kilowatt hours being used and the amount of kilos of CO2 equivalent per kilowatt hour produced using different ways of using the energy. Looking at the ROI, or the electric the energy return rate, that plant was achieving using the whole of the energy being sold, 3.65 units of energy being produced per unit of energy being invested. And we are now starting a new study of the plant that has been integrated with a bioethanol plant. In the time we made this study, only the thermal energy was used in bioethanol plant, but now in the new they enlarge, and now they have 3 biogas plants, not only one. So this number has drastically improved, and we are looking. Here we are looking at the drone picture I took of the plant. We were looking just this new plant is just beside the bioethanol plant, and you're looking at the grain, the storage of grain for the bioethanol plant, the corn bioethanol plant, where this is placed. Finally, I want to give you a quick tour on some of the latest numbers our Italian colleagues are getting from this biogas done right plant. Here, before and after the implementation of biogas done right, you are looking at the cultivated land, at the dairy cow heads, and the CHP fed with biogas. Then here we are looking at the increase in carbon content in soil. Before, in 10 years, they raised up from 1.4 to 1.7% in organic matter content. Here we are looking at the distribution of this organic content in the soil. Here we are looking at the different crops being implemented in the farm in 2017 and 2018. Green winter crops, yellow summer crops, and here is the percentage of land being covered along the year, along the different months of the year. What we mean here is the amount of months we have photosynthesis occurring in all the surface of our farm. No? About 67% of the land has been covered during all around the year with very efficient control of weeds. No? Remember the bullet points I stress out at the beginning of our talks. This is the corn carbon flux, looking at corn and how you have an enormous input coming from the roots being transformed into soil organic, fresh soil organic carbon and stable soil organic carbon, and how this is increased by the input via digestate, via mulching, via compost of after the digester. No? So this is the theoretical balance derived from Ohio State University, how they stayed out the creation of the positive carbon budget, looking at increasing the gains and minimizing the loss in carbon, in soil carbon sequestration and in soil carbon depletion. You have the reference there if you want to get more insight into this. Another example of the Hacienda Agrícola Palaceto, the last, how all this carbon circle and how the carbon is placed and where it finally ends and which is the final consequences in the carbon storage in the soil and the implementation of this net balance of carbon in the farm. Conclusions. No, this is a whole group in Italy last year. Professor Bruce Dale is with the microphone. He's the father of biogas done right. He's a professor of the Michigan State University. We are working with, and also Jeremy Woods of the Imperial College, Tom Richer was in Pennsylvania State, and Kurt of Michigan State University, along with your Italian colleagues. So PDR is a platform that opens new opportunity for biogas systems. It has a strategic importance for farms from the economic, energy, and environmental perspective. It helps resolve critical problems of soil nutrient deficiency, contamination, emissions, energy deficiency, low income, and also wheat production, wheat problems. No? And there are great potentials area where this principle could be applied, analyzing the context and available in infrastructure. Some debate topics I want to leave you to think about on our Mercosur, Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay, and Paraguay area. Do we have a clear strategic vision of renewable carbon generated in our countries? Are we thinking with an integrated vision? Are we preparing ourselves in the face of enormous technological changes? What levels of investments is being devoted to achieve a synergistic operation between the activities in the cities and in the farms and in considering the environment? How we are preparing ourselves in the face of growing environmental demands? How we organize ourselves to invest on a larger scale and take advantages of our economies? How we achieve the synergy between the public and private sectors? How we address the need of coordinated national capacities in research in the face of intensive use of biomass from agroecosystems of Latin America? Do we have instruments to create centers of excellence where resources from various institutions and from various countries could be put together in a network? Are we open to cooperation and work with reference institutes along the whole world? Okay, I leave you here. Some things I didn't remember. I put out how we continue. I think the CBO, the decarbonization credits is a good initiative that Brazil is implementing now, because it puts all biofuels competing one with another. Another platform is BioFuture platform along the Mercosur, the promotion of the subject in the regional and international scene, and bilateral work. This platform, the EPD platform, we need to address the challenge to confront how we stand and study all our biomass products, developing EPD, environmental product declarations, and product category rules. In Argentina, within INTA, we have launched a national platform for the evaluation of the environmental footprints of agriculture and agricultural products. This is the future plan we want to address, no? Develop criteria and guidelines for the preparation of inventories by products, achieve methodological agreements, strengthening the links with institutions, strengthening activities and work carried out by the private sector, achieve environmental profile of agriculture and agro-industrial products, make advance in eco-labeling, addressing the national information database, and developing information that could allow us to evaluate environmental institutional techniques and new developments. Okay, that's all from our side. I leave you with all my social networks in my YouTube channel. You can go deep into some of the aspects we cover very briefly today. I set up there several lectures you can go by. In the Twitter account of Bioenergy, we set up there different news that arouse all over the world. On the Google Sites platform, through my page, you can address the different projects we are involved and the different achievements and new studies we are going through, and there you can find finally my email's address. You can contact me if you have any further questions. That's all from my part.
Thank you very much, Professor Jorge. It was great to have you here today. Great to hear from your experience and also from the real case studies. I don't think we have a lot of time, but we have some time for a few questions. If anyone has anything to ask, now we have maybe 5 minutes or so.
I have a question.
Okay.
Dr. Jorge, my question is, what do you think about the production of biogas from biodigest of sugarcane vinasse in Brazil?
I know that it's a very old use of vinasse, especially for very poor potassium soils in Brazil. It can be largely used. I think there is a need to improve the way the digestate is being used in the field. There is a long way to go to make site-specific use of these effluents, and also there is an enormous opportunity to make more products coming from effluents, not only using them as organic fertilizers in the fields, but also developing new products. And remember also this pyramid I show you, and try to figure out new products you can get from these biodigesters, effluents, and which markets you can achieve, what costs will those products, what you can replace with those products. There is a lot to be done there. There is a lot of thinking, of knowledge, of technology, of science to put there, not only on the hard science part, but also on the social, on the economic side, because you need to. This is a very holistic and systemic challenge, and you need all professionals coming from different sides to put together their knowledge and develop this into the near future.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Very quickly before we go, I don't have a question, I just wanted to hear your opinion. At the very last slide, you were talking about synergy between public and the private sector. So how are things going with this regard in Argentina? Do you have examples of success between in collaborations between companies and universities, or companies and research institutions? How are things? What kinds of challenges do you face when trying to actually integrate efforts from both ends?
Very, very, very important question. Thank you for making it. In our experience, we have more than 10 years working with the private sector. All our studies are funded by the public sector. And in our experience, it depends on the history and the age of the sector you're dealing with. For example, when we deal with the sugarcane sector in Argentina, is a sector that has more than 100 years of history. It's very, very difficult to work with them. No, they are very conservative. It's very hard to get numbers from them. It's very hard to get them invest in new and take more risk. On the other extreme, we have the cornstarch industry that has not more than 5 years old. They push us instead of we push them. They push us, and if we advance 1 kilometer, they advance 5 kilometers. No, and in the middle we have the traditional soybean industry that has more or less 15, 20 years, and we are in the middle. So, but the sugarcane is also slowly moving ahead, because they realize there is a strong change in what is happening along the world, and they have the risk to be outside of the market if they don't reconvert themselves and start to think them. I mean, I would say last 2 or 3 years, they have been starting to invest in making new technologies. So we see also there in that very conservative sector a slowly but speeding up phenomenon of changing. From our side, I think we especially universities. I don't know I don't deeply know Brazilian universities, but Argentinian universities, they are very, very conservative. They are slow moving. The teaching plans, it's an enormous bureaucracy to make big changes in the plans, and the world is moving at a very, very, very high speed. Looking at the research institutes, going out from the universities into the research institutes, we have a strong resistance of making strong changes and putting different institutes to work together. And we cannot address the biomass conversion if we don't put together institutes of genomics with hard engineering, with social, with energy. They have all to work together in a synergic way. And what surprised me, going into France, going to United Kingdom, going into the US, I see those new platforms being put together with enormous investment. And another, that's the final comments I want to make, is when we compare the enormous investment US is making, China is making, Europe is making, we cannot achieve to cope up with those investments, Brazil alone, or Argentina alone, or any country of Latin America alone. We need to work together. If not, we are going to lose the race, and we are losing the race with this conservative and nationalist way of dealing with science. When we work, I work with 4 or 5 European projects where we have people coming from different countries sharing their knowledge and with all the history. It surprised me that we cannot find a Latin American way of putting INTA and BRAPA and the different universities of Latin America working together in these crucial issues regarding biomass. We have an enormous advantage of biomass production, but an enormous disadvantage of how we put science and technology into the biomass conversion.
Thank you for this overview. I think the situation is not very different from ours. Brazilian universities, as you may imagine, are also have a big deal of bureaucracy, and they are very conservative. But they are now starting to realize that with public funding alone, we are going to lag behind. So they are slowly beginning to try to integrate more with private companies and try to get co-funded works in collaborations. And of course, there are some success examples, but they are very rare still. So we're now, I think, perhaps a little late, but we are starting to move in that direction. And even this PhD program, which is intended to unite the 3 major universities in the state of São Paulo, even at such a small scale, we have so many difficulties in just trying to get interested minds working together. So
okay, yes, I completely agree. I think you have a very strong responsibility, the new generation, but you have the enormous advantage that technology is on your side. No, it's unbelievable to make this kind of lecture even 5 or 6 years ago. So technology is moving very fast. It's on our side, so we can speed up and make all this possibility possible. But we have to change our mind, and so I am very enthusiastic of the results of this program you're setting up, and feel free to contact me whenever you need any help.
Okay, thank you very much. So again, I just wanted to thank you for accepting this invitation, for sharing a little bit of your time with us. So I know it's hard to find, to place things in the schedule. So thank you very much for being with us. And
thank you. Bye-bye.
Talk to you in the future.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone.